A new report that offers insights into the landscape of migration governance in Nigeria has been released by the New South Institute. Recent data from the African Union shows that migration has been on the rise on the African continent, and for some communities, it has become a survival strategy. This report by the New South Institute is aimed at improving the ease of movement and settlement and to improve the quality of management of migration by Africans across the African borders. Let's now discuss this further with the author of the report, research fellow for the New South Institute, Victor Amadi. Victor, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. What are some of the major trends that this report has picked up on when it comes to the migration of Nigerians?
All right, good morning, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me. So this is a report that actually speaks to Nigerians' migration governance framework. Regarding the trends, primarily we see that the level at which Nigeria is a destination for individuals is actually on the rise. From the early 1990s, we see just about 450,000 people moving to Nigeria. And as of 2020, based on the UNDESA tables, Nigeria hosts about just 1.3 million immigrants. And also looking at the UNDESA tables as well, the rise in immigration, so Nigerians moving to various destinations, primarily within the West African sub-region.
Okay, so when it comes to the traction, do we see that Nigeria mostly exports people? I don't know if that's the correct phrase, but you have Nigerians mostly migrating and leaving the country. Is Nigeria not actually being a country that is receiving people that are coming outside of Nigeria to come and settle in the country? And I ask this question also because Nigeria is still the biggest economy on the continent.
Yes, primarily Nigeria has a very large population, just almost hitting the 230 million mark. But comparatively, the level at which Nigeria attracts migrants, like I mentioned, currently sits at about 1.3 million people actually coming to Nigeria, primarily from countries within the West African sub-region. And the trend in which Nigerians actually move, also we see about 1.6 million Nigerians actually moving, also primarily within the West African sub-region. So this is, I think, primarily due to the framework that actually facilitates mobility within the region. So we have the Economic Community of West African States, which encourages free movement of people through its framework on the free movement of persons, right of residence and establishment. So I would say it's and somewhat even split, Nigeria being a destination country as well as a country of origin.
Okay. Also then looking at the unemployment figures in Nigeria, the report indicating that between 2010 and 2020, the unemployment rate rose fivefold. But here's the thing about the Nigerian financial system as well, and also data coming out of Nigeria. Some people have argued that the data sometimes is not reliable, and also that the financial systems in Nigeria are not up to the international standards that we've seen, for instance, in countries like South Africa.
Right. So that primarily, I think, it's just one of the issues around migration, and hence one of the key strategies in migration policy is to actually improve data collection as to getting a definite number as to the number of individuals coming in and actually exiting the country. So I just have to say, working based on the United Nations UNDESA tables, that is the estimated data that we use to actually understand the trends and the patterns of migration, particularly in Nigeria.
Yeah, yeah. And then with the type of people or the type of professionals that are leaving and migrating and leaving Nigeria, what is it that the risk report has picked up, if anything at all? Do you find that more skilled, educated people are leaving the country?
Yes, so that primarily, I think, is just one of the major conversations going on within Nigeria right now. The immigration of young, skilled professionals. So this is due to a host of various factors, looking at the employment situation in Nigeria, the situation of the economy, insecurity, challenges. So we have a growing trend of young individuals moving to more affluent destinations, mostly in Europe or the United States or some Asian countries as well.
Mm-hmm. The Nigerian population, unfortunately, also faced this unfortunate stigma. And I wonder then, when they go to the receiving countries, how they are treated at those receiving countries where they're migrating to.
Yeah, so that also speaks to, one of the key themes when it comes to conversations around migration in Nigeria, particularly how, individuals in diaspora are actually treated. And I think this also speaks to the focus within the governance architecture of migration. So issues around rights of migrants, not just those coming in, but those leaving the country as well. So within now the context of the whole conversation on migration, there's a key policy on diaspora engagement, which looks to actually handle those issues and also try to facilitate return migrations of Nigerians in diaspora and ensure that there's some kind of transfer of skills to improve the economy.
Yeah. And generally on the continent, what are some of the trends then that you're also picking up with the people that are actually leaving their countries? I know that we've been reporting a lot when it comes to Africans willing to take that risk of crossing the Mediterranean. Former President Thabo Mbeki, when I asked him about this question, he said that it's not a case of people fleeing their liberators. However, though, there are economic situations that do force people to then seek greener pastures.
Right. So there are push-pull factors when it comes to migration. Ideally, I think, just looking at the continent holistically, migration actually occurs within the continent mostly. So there's just a minute few who actually take up, that dangerous activity of, moving irregularly or illegally to most of the Western countries. But primarily, looking at, Nigeria and some other countries and some other regions in general, looking at the economic situations, issues around security, these are push factors that actually drive some people to actually explore greener pastures elsewhere. And also, pull factors, looking at Nigeria's history, for instance, post-colonization and when we experienced the oil boom in the 80s, you had a situation where just after the boom, there was a decline in oil prices and almost the labor force collapsed. And there was then an attraction to move to countries with better wage structures. So you have those situations where people actually move to markets where there are more attractive wages and more competitive wages.
Yeah. As the New South Institute, have you reflected as yet on the decision that was taken by the United Kingdom in that agreement that they've signed with Rwanda to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda and rather have them being processed there?
So that's not an aspect we have reflected on. My study particularly actually focused on the governance architecture in Nigeria, but subsequent papers might actually explore looking at the East African region and also Kenya. So then those are areas that will be developed going forward.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Victor Amadi, there's a research fellow at the New South Institute, a report looking into the migration of Nigerians leaving Nigeria. Still